Hey, gang. It's me, Steve, with Guitar Center, and we're here at GC Hollywood today, and we got a packed house. We got a very excited, bubbling, sort of energetic room going here, and I know we got people out there on the stream. So, ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome to the stage Mark Holcomb, Misha Mansoor, and Jake Bowen from Periphery. Guys, thank you so much for being here. When we announced this, people started going nuts. Social media comments immediately were like, all caps, yes, exclamation point. Everyone's very excited. And what you guys do, and you have done for a long time, is you're really open with your process. There's documentaries in the studio, tutorial videos. Where did that start for you guys? And like, how did it become part of the way that you work?
Is this thing on? Hey guys, how's everyone doing? That's a very good question. I'd say it started just because we're a bunch of nerdy forum boys, you know, and like we'd post on forums, and like there would always be a lot of information exchange there, like nothing.
Does anybody like still know what a forum is?
I don't think they do.
Oh, okay.
Everyone is really quiet, right?
Forum? Is that like a place you go?
Yeah, it's like a message board. This is the old internet, my friends. But I used to post on like the Meshuggah forum, because back then, if you were a Meshuggah fan, you had no friends. So I had no friends except these people online that I would talk to, because everyone else was just like, shut up about Meshuggah, we get it. Nice shirt, by the way. Yeah, you see it. And yeah, you know, but now you could be a Meshuggah fan and have friends, which is great. But back then, you had to talk on these message boards, and you know, you'd nerd out over all the little things you found. There was one for 7-string guitars. There was one for John Petrucci, a big Petrucci and
BT Bam. There was a
BT Bam forum. Yeah, Jake was a frequenter of that one. That's where I met Jake. Jake's distracted.
Just making sure everything's
Does
working.
the track
over
work?
Yeah.
but like, oh no, that's a guitar. no, it's a chair. It's fine. But yeah, like because everyone was so open with the information, I think that just sort of translated. And I don't know if you guys agree, but like I have watched band documentaries of bands that I don't listen to or care about, and I think they're the most fascinating thing in the world. I just love watching the process.
Love them. Yeah.
So I think there was also that. It was like, man, it'd be so cool to be able to do that ourselves.
That's cool. So, yeah, you know, that is a very interesting thing. It's like you don't have to like the genre, you don't have to like the style, but you're like seeing their gears turn in their brain, and you're like, oh, there's something there. Maybe I could use some of that kind of thing. So I'm curious, when you guys first started getting into guitar and sort of like developing your style or developing your voice, what were the sort of main influences at play, and what sort of like first barriers did you overcome and be like, oh, I can do this?
Yeah, I mean, so I started, and I'm dating myself here, but I started in the early 90s. I started playing at the age of 13, and I wanted to be Dave Grohl, basically, from Foo Fighters. If you guys know the first Foo Fighters record with the gun on it. And I saw an MTV special of them basically performing the whole record from front to back. And he had like a Gibson Explorer, and he had it low, and he looked powerful, long hair, and I was like, man, I want to be like I want to embody whatever kind of power he's wielding right now. And I went and got a guitar. My dad bought me a really cheap guitar, and I started learning those songs front to back, and they were easy enough to where you could play them very imperfectly, you could play them very sloppily, but you'd still feel cool. And I think that's one of the things that sort of motivates you in the very beginning of playing guitar, because it's a very demoralizing uphill battle, right? If you're just starting guitar, and maybe those of you out there who are very new to guitar, you know that the failure in the very beginning is backbreaking, right? Like not being able to pull off a section, or like, you know, I can't, how does this work? How do I stretch from this point to this point? How do I pick that fast? How do I get legato clean? Failing at that kind of stuff, it really sucks. But the one sort of consolation prize is getting to feel cool, you know, is getting to feel like you're emulating your hero. And so that was big for me personally in the very beginning. And then I discovered Metallica and Pantera and stuff like that in the mid-'90s. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And they're still killing it, yeah. But yeah, that's where I started basically.
This is my turn. You guys are looking at me. Oh God, I haven't done this in a really long time, so I'm like kind of like thinking about how nervous I am, and it kind of sucks. So
Don't be nervous, Jakey. Should
We
Jakey
believe
be
in you.
nervous?
Should Jake be nervous?
oh,
No.
thank you.
You're
Okay,
among friends
I'll just
here.
stop being nervous.
Yeah, just stop it. Have you just tried stopping?
Um,
Very helpful. Thank you.
The question was, well, how did I start at guitar? Everybody in my family is a musician, and they're always like instruments all around the house, so it was just kind of this natural thing. And the interesting thing about it is that I was given lessons, and like my family tried to show me things, and I never really internalized it, never really started to take it seriously until much later. And it was a harsh realization when I knew I wanted to be serious about it, and I was probably like 18 and just out of high school, and just kind of feeling like, wow, I pretended to play guitar this whole time, and then I had to like really refigure out exactly how to figure out the instrument. And I was in a couple of local bands for a little while, and that didn't really teach me anything. And then I met this guy, and meeting Misha and the band at the time, and then all of our friends. Mark was part of that group too in the early days. It really like pushed me to kind of get things together really, really quickly. So in a very short span of time, I went from like really not knowing how to count to 4 to being able to play the walk. And I kind of like willed it, and it was really scary, but I think it kind of showed me that I have the tenacity to kind of figure it out. So I don't claim to know how to play the guitar. I know that's silly because I have a signature guitar right here, but
Don't let Ibanez hear you say that.
well, they just did. Mike's here, yeah. But I tricked all of you, so ha.
Awesome. Okay, Misha,
Oh,
how about you?
what was the question again?
Well, it was, how did you first come to guitar? And then early on, was there anything that you overcame where you're like, oh, I can do this?
Yeah, so I actually started out on drums. I always wanted to be a drummer, but when I went to university, it became very difficult to practice because it's a drum set. And guitar was always something I did kind of in the background. Interestingly enough, Dave Grohl was kind of an inspiration because I was like, oh man, like, he started out as a drummer and then he played guitar. He could sing. I can't sing, but I was like, maybe I could do the guitar thing. Before that, it was all kind of like power chords. Like I'd be learning a lot of Deftones stuff, stuff that was kind of playable. But then once I decided to focus on guitar, that's when I really got into bands like Dream Theater and Meshuggah and like more proggy stuff, and like guitar players like Alan Holdsworth, and just trying to learn like a bit more, like taking guitar really seriously for a change. And all that stuff was very, very frustrating. Do we have any gamers here? Anyone play video games? Yeah, probably a lot.
Everybody in the audience.
I mean, like I think it's that same part of your brain that makes you want to be like, oh, like there's like a Dark Souls or Elden Ring boss or Bloodborne boss that you can't beat, and like then the next day for some reason it sort of clicks. It's kind of the same thing. There's certain mentalities where you'll just practice and just can't get it, and then for some reason, like after a good night's sleep, it makes sense the next day, and that was pretty empowering. And it's just, there's certain people who get into it like that, and then you get really obsessed because it does feel like, oh, like if I just kind of chip away at it, I'll eventually get the hang of it. And I know that all of us.
That's the craziest feeling. And you can't put your finger on why you got better at that part overnight,
Yeah.
or why you improved, but it's like a drug almost.
Yeah, it
You
is.
get addicted to that feeling.
Yeah. So that would be sort of the answer to that question.
Yeah, you just got to get into that overnight cryo chamber,
Yeah.
and it gets uploaded into your brain somehow.
Yeah. It's like it gets stored in long-term memory or like your muscle memory. And muscle memory is such a big thing for us. It's like I don't know why we know how to play any of these songs, and the second I start thinking about it, I mess up.
Yeah.
So if that's why I mess up tonight, that's what happened. Is I started thinking about the.
And we are going to mess up tonight, guys. So first of all, we are playing songs
Yeah.
for you guys. But
Should we play a song? Maybe we should.
whatever
Yeah.
you guys want
I
to do.
feel like we've been
Just-
yapping for
yes,
a while.
we're going to get into a song. The only thing I want to do is explain what we're going to hear
Okay.
on the stream. So if we could just nerd out just a little bit about what's our signal path as to how we're getting the audio to
Yeah,
everybody, that'd be
absolutely,
cool.
absolutely. Well, we are using a trio of Fractal Audio FM9s. Fractal sent these to us, and we've been using, you guys are familiar with the Axe effects, right? Anyone have the Axe effects here? All right, we got a few Axe effects, guys. So like this is their floorboard, which is just easier for setting up here. And we have to change our own patches, which we don't do. We normally have a computer doing that for us, so we may miss a few of those as well. But what's cool is that this is such a one-to-one unit with the Axe effects that we just transferred our live patches over onto this, and they all kind of work seamlessly. Jake did all the research there for us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Daddy.
Yeah, no problem. It's really cool because if you have an XFX3 and you like kind of built your set on it or you use it a lot, you could get an FM9 and export the patch from the XFX3 and literally drag and drop it onto the editor for the FM9, and it puts it on there one-to-one, and it's really easy, and you've just turned your home rig into your live rig, so I definitely recommend this setup.
But we are going direct to the PA, and we are also, this is what we do live as well. We split it out before the cabinet simulator, so what's going out there needs a cabinet simulator, but then we are feeding the non-cabinet simulated version of our signal chain to the effects loop return of the Invective, and this was actually designed, when I was designing this amp, to take a modeler or any sort of thing very, very well, to have like a nice even and clean signal path for that. So that sounds really good going through there. And that's just to fill out the stage sound a little bit. Even live, we don't mic that up. It's always better to have less mics on stage, so we go direct, keep everything cleaner. So that's what you'll be hearing. Hopefully it sounds all right. We're doing our best.
Nice. Okay, so the first song that we're going to get into, what song is that?
Make Total Destroy. Is that what you guys want to do?
Make total?
All right.
Make Total Destroy?
Yeah.
So let's just set the scene as you guys are strapping in with your instruments. What was the world like for you at the time that you were writing this, and what should we look out for in the tune as we go through it?
So this was on Periphery 2, which came out in what, 2012? 2012? Yeah, 2012 Periphery 2 came out, and one word kind of summed up our life at the time, and that is Skyrim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A game that just came out this year.
For the refrigerator. You can play it on a refrigerator screen. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, all joking aside, yeah, Skyrim was out at the time. We were all obsessed with that. But it was at a really awesome point in my life. I had just joined the band. I joined the band while we were supporting Periphery 1. And Periphery 2 was my first sort of foray into writing with the guys, recording with the guys, and touring with them. And this was a special song for me because people always think that Scarlet was the first thing I wrote for the band, but technically, the first thing I ever wrote and tracked with you guys was the bridge riff in Make Total. Remember the technical? I'll play it in like 2 seconds. But yeah, so the notey sort of technical riff in the middle of Make Total before the Reduce Them All to Bones part. Yeah. That was the first thing I ever contributed to the band. So that's a special song for me. But it came originally from a demo that you wrote in Mauritius. Is that right?
That's where my parents are from. I was on vacation there, and I was really bored, so I brought a little recording rig, little Axe effects, and yeah, just wrote a bunch of songs there. That intro riff is just something I sat on forever. That happens. I'm sure. Love you. How many guitarists we got in here? Yeah, there we go. That looks about right. So I'm sure sometimes you guys just sit on riffs and then eventually you record them. I kind of get this thing sometimes where I'm like a little afraid to record a riff because if it doesn't go well, it might just get lost I'll be like, that sucks. So it's like you kind of want it to go well. And I knew it was a strong riff, but I wanted it to be recorded well so I wouldn't give up on it. And I sort of waited for that opportunity. It sat as like a little unfinished demo forever, and it wasn't until like Mark came in and had some riffs and everyone came in together that it became a song. And that's the beauty of this band. It's like I never wanted this to be like a solo thing. I need as much help as I can get. So I really need these guys to help me write. And they will take things that I'm like, I really just don't know where to go with this. And they'll be like, oh yeah. Like they'll just have like one riff and it'll open it all up. And I'll have a million ideas all of a sudden. So this is a very good example of that.
Awesome. All right, let's
play
do
it.
Let's go for it.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you.
Very nice work. So we got a couple questions that came through on the stream, and this was sort of alluding to your previous statement before we started. Riffs. How do you know if a riff is good? Mimi wants to know. How do you know if a riff is good?
I think like we've been asking ourselves that question our whole career, but it's kind of it's a very abstract answer. It usually gives you this very specific feeling, and all of us have to have that same exact feeling at the same exact time when we hear it. And if it doesn't, then it goes in the garbage. If it does, then we kind of see what we can connect to it. And that's like the best way I can describe it. It's like, you know, it's just kind of like you listen to it and you're like, that's sick. And then you move on. Yeah.
What he said.
Sometimes there's like no verbalization. Like, remember we did this interview a couple weeks ago on the origins of like Stank Face. Do you guys know Stank Face? Like, you go to a Meshuggah show, like you're in the front row to a Meshuggah show, and like you look behind you during Bleed at everyone's face, and it's all the same face. It's all just like nobody's clapping, nobody's cheering. It's just like,
That's when you know you got a good riff. Yeah. We'll look at each
Yeah.
other and be like,
and sometimes it's not even the stank face that you see in the room. Like in a periphery writing room, it's just like the wide eyes, like damn, like yeah. But like a lot of times there's no verbalization, and it always comes down to this sort of democratic approach we have to songwriting. If it doesn't sit right with one person among us five, then we got to change it. I know a lot of bands don't work that way, and it would be easier if we didn't do things that way. But the sort of beauty of Periphery is that it has to pass all of those 5 checkpoints with each member in the band. And that's why it takes us so damn long to do albums now. But we're trying to change that. It's not going to be 4 years before whatever we're doing next, right?
yeah, we won't have a whole pandy to deal with, you know?
Pandies get in the way, yeah.
So that brings up a very interesting question in my mind. Is like the band is a van, let's say, and somebody's driving at any given time. So how do you guys sort of navigate this, like, okay, I'm going to sit here in the passenger seat and ride this wave, or like, hey, we should have turned left back there. Like, how do you manage that communication with each other when you feel like you would want to, you know, chime in on something like that?
That's probably one of the... You're asking a very good question that has a very complicated answer. But the long and short of it is it takes time. There's a reason that we've been together as long as we have, and it's communication. It's a really boring answer, and it doesn't really say much in and of itself, but we have learned how to communicate with one another. When you guys are writing, I mean, how many of you guys are in bands, right? Got a few people in bands. Maybe you've experienced this where, you know, you have an idea and one of your bandmates doesn't like it, and it's like, well, they don't like me. Maybe they're saying they don't like me as a musician or whatever. And even if that's not logically what it is, that is sort of intuitively what it feels like. And that can cause a lot of issues. Then you get into this like sort of tit for tat situation. It's like, oh, well, you know, if you didn't like mine, I'm not going to like his next, you know. And that's surprisingly normal. So to find a group of people where you could sort of work past that, that is sort of the beauty of finding a group of people that you like working with. Is it transcends that. It's like, no, we're all on the same team. There's nothing personal about, like, no one needs to get a riff in the song just to have their riff in the song. We're all taking a step back and be like, does this serve it? And then it could take on a very different and beautiful sort of dynamic where now you have these guys that you could sort of just trust. Like, sometimes the best feedback that someone can get is just a yes or a no, because it's not about like, is this part good or not? It's like as a reflection of me, but is this part good or not for the song? And then you're too close, but you have a couple people that you trust near you being like yes or no, and that even if they're saying no, you're like, good, then we've made a decision. And that's taken a very long time for us to get to that point, but now that we can do that, it shortcuts so much in the writing process because we don't have to worry about any of that nonsense. So I know that's a lot. It's what I believe you should strive for in sort of writing engagements or anything like that. If you can have that sort of chemistry with someone, that's very special. Cool. So that's the answer to that.
Very good. It's great advice for life, for anything, any collaborative endeavor.
Nothing we say is worth clapping over, but thank you.
I think it's important to kind of, for at least for me to remember, is that we've come, like Misha mentioned it a couple of times, we've come a long way. You don't start out like that, and it's gotten to the point now where like all of us can like self-police our writing contributions. Like there have been plenty of times, especially on Periphery 5, where I'd be in the studio by myself and like trying to work, like flesh out an idea, and I'll be in there for like 3 hours, and I'll come out and be like, guys, it's not working out. Like I'm not happy with this. And I think like being able to kind of develop that to a point where you're critical of yourself, but also not being like, not staying in your own way, and not, but also not letting it discourage you from continuing down the path. It's like, these are all skills that you have to develop if you want to be like, have good communication within the band.
Cool. Yeah. I think we should follow up that beautiful life advice with a question from Toilet Stand from the live stream.
I know
Toilet Stand.
I know this guy.
I
Yeah.
know
He's
Toilet
been a
Stand.
Periphery fan for a very, very long time.
What's up, Toilet Stand?
Yeah.
And this is specific to Make Total Destroy. How many versions, and this, you know, you can maybe extrapolate this to any tune. Like how many versions will you sort of like go through before you arrive at a finished product?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It changes. Sometimes we get it very quickly. Sometimes it takes more than. Sometimes we like have it ready for the album and it's not there, and it doesn't make it onto an album like 2 or 3 albums later. It just sort of sits there and we don't get it quite right.
How many versions do you think there are of The Price is Wrong out there?
Yeah, like that's
somewhere?
what I'm thinking of. Like that song went through so many
60?
iterations, and I still don't think we got it right.
Yeah, I don't either. Yeah.
That's one of my least favorite songs.
But there are songs of ours that come together in like one try.
Yep.
And it's just luck, you know. It's luck. It's not due to any one member. It's not due to any one thing that we're doing differently. It's just we got lucky with that one, you know. At least that's what it feels like. But with Make Total, I don't think that there are very many versions of that, right? There was your original demo that you did in Mauritius, and then we kind of just thought it needed a bridge section.
And it kind of opened up from there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that one came together pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's so long ago, I don't really remember. You know.
Well, like specific to working together musically and sort of the space that you occupy on a track, how did you guys sort of develop your lanes or your niches that you exist in within the band?
I think that just happens naturally. You just sort of find your place, you know. Just don't overthink it. When you have good chemistry, these things sort of just fall into place, you know.
I let these guys inspire me. Like you know, like when these guys do something cool, it makes me want to write something cool or that accompanies it, and it's nice to kind of have that sort of give and take in this relationship.
Yeah, these guys keep me on my toes. Like it's always like I just hear like some stuff that come up, and I'm like, God, like I gotta try harder, you know. So I think having that sort of
Cool.
that sort of vibe is very helpful for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jaja was asking, you know, how do you get past just the intro riff? Like you've got something that you kind of like. How do you flesh it out into
The
a
hardest
full
part.
tune?
You get lucky. There's a lot of just intro riff stuff like in the Dropbox graveyard, you know. You know, I don't know if you guys have an easier time with it. You guys struggle after that second riff? That's normal. I think we just. But the one thing that we actually have found that's pretty helpful, like because this was happening along the last few albums, is like sometimes you get stuck and you just try to force it and just nothing happens, and then you're just wearing at it and you're just tired and cranky. What we do now is like right before we start to hit that point, we're like we'll just table it. Let's just do something else, and it oftentimes will be a completely different vibe because we're just really tired of the vibe that we just had, right? And then that will be its own thing, and then maybe we get tired of that, and then before you know it, you've got like 4 or 5 ideas that are largely unfinished, but and you'd be like, man, we didn't get anything done. But then when you go back to that first idea, you're like, oh, that's a lot cooler than I thought it was, because now you've got these other ideas out of the way. And a little hack to know how you feel about something, because it works both ways. Sometimes I'll write something, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know, but you won't actually know how you feel about it until you write something else, because there is that recency bias. So then, like, when you have recency bias on something else, you'll be able to look at what you did more objectively. And that's another sort of litmus test for us, where it's like, all right, if that's still cool after we've written, you know, 1 or 2 other ideas that we're kind of stoked about, then maybe there's something there. Because sometimes that idea is like, it's actually not that good. It was a bit of studio hype, and like you know, that needs a bit more work than we realized. So few tricks.
There are extreme examples of this kind of thing. Like we'll have a riff or a part that has no other companion to it. It's just one riff that we never figured out where to go, and we'll set it aside. And I'm not even exaggerating, but like 10 years later, we'll just find it in the Dropbox and be like, "You remember this?" And all of us will be like, "Oh my God, that's actually awesome. Why didn't we think that was awesome 10 years ago?" And it's just maybe it wasn't very good 10 years ago according to our tastes, because tastes evolve over the years, or maybe we just were never inspired to continue the idea. But sometimes you get lucky, and there have been so many examples where we'll need a riff or a part or a section or some kind of other jumping off point in a song, and we'll just go through the Dropbox and we'll just find stuff. Oh, this is 110 BPM, just like the section that we need. Ah, it's in a different key. What if we transpose it? We'll put this in A flat. You know, like there's all kinds of things you can sort of maneuver around to make it work. But it never hurts to have this enormous back catalog of ideas that range anywhere from just flaming trash to pretty cool. And like I was saying, like tastes evolve, tastes change. It's like you see a movie when you're 15 years old, and you see it again at 35 years old, you have a completely different opinion about it. Same thing with a riff, same thing with a song or the way something sounds. So, yeah.
We just got a hot question in from Logan, and this is directed specifically to Misha, but can be for everyone. For your rhythm practice, do you do guitar rhythm practice like you would do drum sort of exercises?
I don't practice. I'm the worst. I hate practice. I hate practicing so much. Don't practice your guitar. It's the worst. No, I practice a little differently. So I really enjoy recording and writing. One of the best bits of advice if you want to get tight as a rhythm player is just record. One of the problems that you'll see sometimes, let's say you're playing to a metronome or whatever, right? You might think you're playing tight, but you have no immediate feedback. You just sort of like, yeah, I think I got that. Well, recordings don't lie, my friend. So, like, if you record something and then you have to double track it, if that's not tight, you'll know immediately. So it's a really good way to sort of try. And then you have these visual cues. You know, you can see if you look and you can see the transients, you'd be like, oh, I'm kind of coming in a little bit early on that. That's probably why it sounds bad. You learn little tricks, like it's probably it's better to be slightly late than slightly early. But like, you'll be able to kind of work at it from that angle, and then that's a very sort of relevant way to practice, because if you do end up recording, you'll be very good at playing to a click. It'll come very naturally. We play to a click live. It's second nature. Like we're kind of lost without it, as you'll see in a song later. But, oops. But like you know, it will definitely be at least for me, it was a fun way to practice, because you get something out of it, whether it's a song or whatever. You get something that you can listen to, and then you can practice that. And then when you retrack it, you can track it tighter, right? So that is how I practice.
I think Jake has the most disciplined routine in the band. Jake practices and prepares like there's no tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that's not a good thing. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, because it is true. Like, I practice a lot, but you can over-practice, and that can really solidify bad habits, especially if you're not getting active feedback from people who you respect, musicians that like are better than you. And you know, you can keep practicing something, but you're practicing it bad, and it just makes you worse. And so you really have to kind of be aware of how much you're practicing, taking time away from your practice, and then coming back to the same exact thing and drilling it again and seeing if you're improving. One thing I thought of when you were talking about the tracking thing, and I don't know why I can't stop thinking about this, but like when you're double tracking guitars, mute the other track. If you've already tracked one of the left side, let's say, mute that and then track the right side. Don't track it to the left side. I don't know why, but it won't be as tight.
It's covering up your mistakes, just like you guys are doing for me tonight.
Yeah.
That's
why we have 3 guitar players.
Yeah. You'll never know who it is, you know? Should we take some questions from these fine folks?
Yes. Who has a question here in the audience?
Oh, I see one. I see back there. You know, we got people.
Shout them out, and I'll reiterate for everybody.
How do you guys mix in the mix? How do you separate all 3 guitar players when there's guitar left and right?
How do you manage?
All right, that's a very good
question. How do you manage
question.
a mix?
How do we manage a mix? So live, we're actually, Jake's only on the left side because he's got to work the laptop, but I'm usually on the left, Jake's in the center, Mark's on the right, and we'll usually arrange parts so that they generally work best that way. On recording, our albums really need to be thought of as like compositions. So it's not about having like all 3 guitar parts perfectly represented. Like, for example, one person will track all sides of something, you know, and it's generally whoever plays it best. Like, I will have someone play my riffs if they play it better than me. I don't care. I just want it to sound good. And that's generally how we approach the albums. So, you know, if let's say there's like a left and right part and a counterpoint part, it'll be left and right. And then there'll be another set of 2 tracks. That would be what Jake is playing. That's left and right, but softer underneath. You know, if there's no vocals, then there's maybe space in the center. But I don't like to have rhythms in the center. So it'd be like leads or clean or ambient stuff or whatever. And then we have to be cognizant of space for vocals. So that's why we'd like to have things out on the side. So it's really thinking about it more of a composition and mix context when we're doing an album. And then live is its own beast. And I think, Jake, you're slightly off center, right, in the mix?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, just like he's center but slightly off center to leave space for Spencer and the snare. Basically.
We're also EQ'd very differently.
Yep. So there's a bit of work that goes into it, but it's tough. Don't do 3 guitars.
Try to do one.
Try to do 1 guitar or 0. All right.
Just become a DJ.
Yeah, that's the answer.
And do we have another question?
You
pick 'em?
choose. You choose.
All right, right here, down front. This is a very good question.
Very
Does
good
the riff come to you as musical into your head, or do you sort of find it on the fretboard?
Both.
I would say for me personally, it's like 95% noodling, just fumbling around and seeing what happens. Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of many instances where I'll have an idea. I think it's different for Misha because, like, if you listen to our music, there are these very, very rhythmically jarring sections that chances are Misha's responsible for those parts in our music. He's always had this sort of natural aptitude for
Listening to Meshuggah?
Yeah, listen to Meshuggah. But like, you've told me before, like, yeah, I came up with this part, like humming it in the shower. And
Shower is that's a life hack.
Yeah.
If I need a riff, I just take a shower. I don't know. I don't know why that's the case. Sarah's right there. She could tell you if ever I need to like write a GGD thing or something. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'll just take a shower. It's like the white noise or something, like just like clears my head, and I'll just start like imagining this whole part. Like it'll be totally unintentional, you know. Like, and I'll just start hearing stuff. And like so many riffs and eventual Periphery riffs have started in the shower.
Like a mini setup, like a very small waterproof setup.
To record in the
There's a market.
Travel idea shower?
Yeah, we'll have albums every 3 months. Like, right?
Something weird happens whenever I like try to come up with a riff in my head. I don't really have the ability to kind of make it come to life when I sit down to record it. I'll have it in my head as an idea, then I sit down to try to record it, and then something completely different comes out, and I don't know why that is. And I think like kind of like listening, I started to like be more comfortable with what I was writing because I'd have it in my head. I'm like, oh, I think it should sound like this. Then I sit down to actually do it, and that it just doesn't come out the same way as I hear it in my head. So you guys might experience that too. So just listen to your brain, I guess.
Very good question, though.
Very good. So shall we play another tune?
Sure.
What are we going to hear this time?
Wildfire?
We got the sevens, yeah. Wildfire.
Wildfire? I'm going to switch guitars.
You know, while we're switching guitars, this brings up the interesting question of how do you even decide what a set list is? So I know a lot of you guys are in bands. Is it tough for you to decide the set list? Does somebody always make the choice for the band? How do you guys arrive at it?
It's really tough.
It's really tough. A lot of it revolves around the more physical instruments, like the vocals and the drums and stuff, and even like where the songs are, like in the set and the groupings of the different tunings. It takes us a really long time to make a set list. And when it's just the 3 of us, it's a little bit easier because we can just play whatever, whenever. But when the whole band's involved, it's a pretty it's a lot of back and forth.
We have the easiest job in the band, so we could play forever, whatever. It's just memorizing stuff, right? Matt and especially Spencer, they use their bodies to play, and like Spencer has the hardest job because he sings and screams, and that's really taxing. We always write stuff that we can barely play, and he can write stuff that he can barely sing, and then has to learn it, and it's good. It helps. He's grown as a singer over every album and over the decade and a half he's been with us. But it does mean that like we have to be really strategic, because sometimes he'll be like, hey, can we put like the more screaming heavy stuff towards the end of the set, because like if I do that I won't be able to hit this high note at the end, and so we're doing it like that. But then it's like, also, don't do what we do and have a whole bunch of guitars and tunings. It's so stupid. If I could go back, I'd just be like, we'll pick one and stick with it. Because as a result, we have to like group the songs so that we're not like switching guitars every song. So there's that consideration as well. And then most important really is like, we want there to be a flow to the set. It has to like, start off with a bang, and it has to flow naturally and end with a bang. And sometimes what people will see, we will over the course of a tour like tweak the set list, because we're like, yeah, it doesn't feel right. We want it, and we want it to feel right. We want it to be the best collection of songs. We'll gauge the audience feedback, and our crew as well will be really honest with us, and we will tweak it until we have it right.
All right, so Wildfire.
Yep.
What should we look for in the performance, or what was your sort of mindset world like at the time it was created?
So this one is kind of born of this pretty cool technique. I'll show you. We have a bunch of guitars here. You guys will like this. It's hard to do without a mic stand.
I'll be your mic stand.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
Oh, the Blood Eagle thing? Yeah.
So basically, my good buddy Randy Edwards showed me this. He's a photographer, but a really good guitarist. He was playing, I think, like a Contortionist cover, and he was doing this really cool harmonic. I was like, how are you doing that? And basically, he was fretting a note on one string, and then if you did that without like fretting the first fret there, it would just sound like that. But you're doing this sort of dissonant thing, because so this is just like fretting the first fret and then the open on the second one, and you get this dissonant sound. I was like, that's pretty cool. So I worked that into a riff in a song that we have called Blood Eagle. And that was pretty cool. I was like, let's do it again. And there was this riff I like kind of sat on for a while, and that's like the first riff in Wildfire. A couple riffs, and then we kind of shoehorned some other stuff in there. Wildfire is a weird song because it has a bunch of riffs that are shoehorned in. It's kind of like everything you should never do in songwriting. It like breaks a bunch of rules that I set for myself. I was like, this is wrong. You shouldn't do it. But it actually follows the most important rule, which is we thought it was cool. So like, it's kind of one of those things where it worked. We were making all the right faces and sounds, and it all just sort of came together. And we've learned not to fight that. It's just like, just trust it. Just trust the process. It's like, if it feels right, then it doesn't matter if it's like disjointed or weird. I mean, breaks out into like a jazz and sax solo at the end. So like, it's a weird song, but it works. I don't know why. I think we'd be a lot better musicians if we understood why. But we roll with it. Nice.
All right, shall we do it? All right.
There is a couple of stank faces in that song that I made.
I don't think my guitar was in tune. Sorry.
Managed to find a boom stand here at Guitar Center, gang.
Oh yes, finally.
So, man, that's brutal on the outro there. Is that another sort of drum influenced, sort of rhythmic, punchy kind of thing?
That part was a joke. The
Yeah, that part was a
ending?
joke. It was.
Yeah.
It
It was a joke.
So much of that song was a joke.
Yeah.
Like you just try things to freak your friends out. Then they're like, "That's kind of cool. We should keep that."
I remember in your demo, I was like, that part's not like, you don't want that part in the song, right? And you're like,
I thought Matt.
yeah,
would,
why not?
I thought Matt would veto it, but he
Oh,
loved it.
Yeah. But it was like, it became this sort of punctuation mark at the end of the song. And it was a why not thing. Like, it felt like it was going to develop into something. Like, I was like, oh, we should build it into something. And then the consensus was just to keep it as this exclamation point, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
it
fun.
does elicit the face. It's
Face?
very heavy, and it's so cool to see you guys all in unison doing that. The thing that I've noticed is sitting right here watching you is like, at times, your approach is very relaxed and it's sort of very fluid. And then there's these, accentuated like punches on the guitar. So I'm curious as to how you guys developed your style. How do you stay loose? And even just like, what strings or picks do you use? Like, what is the feel like for your own hands?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say one thing is I try to stay like I'm nervous as all hell right now, so I'm not loose. Like we're loose like about a week and a half into tour once we've like gotten the hang of it. Like this is rough for us, But generally, like you can relax a bit more, and that's always better. It's bad to tense up. We all favor passive pickups, and they tend to be a lot more dynamic. We all pick relatively hard. Jake probably picks the most consistent out of everyone, but I think Mark and I like to really dig in. But we all like pickups that are dynamic, because that way when you can, we have our in-ears, we can hear our guitar tone very clearly, and you can hear the difference when you're picking harder or softer. And so a lot of this is just, how we've trained ourselves to play these songs so that they sound a certain way.
Very cool. So our buddy Toilet Stand got
Very
in
popular.
the chat again with another great question. What effects are going on in the solo?
Oh yeah, so the patch is called Sup Frederick. It's my Frederick Thorndahl ripoff patch. I don't know exactly how he does it. It's, if you guys are familiar with his solo album, like he'll use this effect a lot. It sounds pretty nutty. So this is my attempt to try to get something that sounded like that. That section in the song is literal just Meshuggah worship. It's not even hiding it. It's just trying to sound like a Meshuggah solo section. So I was like, well, I might as well lean into it and do like one of those things. So it's the way I figured out how to do it is with a flanger, and I've got live we have the computer doing this for us because it does all the switching, but all it's doing is what this little pedal here is doing, just a little expression pedal. And if we listen to the patch, again, I may need
Let's fly it in.
So like, if you listen to the patch, like. You could just sort of.
Sorry, got a mic stand.
I never thought that flanger would be an effect I would ever use.
Flanger.
But that's what this is. It's I forget what it's affecting a few things at once, and I just kind of played around. The good thing with the Axe effects is that you can route a pedal to control any number of things. So it's even doing it in a way where it's like certain things are going backwards as I go up, and then certain things are going forward. I don't remember. It was just based off sound, but I was just trying to rip off Frederick from Meshuggah. So like, that's basically where I ended up. If it's all the way back, you have a pretty flat sounding note. So for the tapping part, I'll keep it back there. But then at the end of the solo, it gets kind of messy. And you could just sort of rock back and forth and get that effect. So it's pretty unique. Like Frederick's one of my favorite guitarists on the planet. So why not rip him off a little bit?
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Well, is there a go-to that each one of you has in terms of like, okay, this is how I like my rhythm sound. I like this amp. I like this thing, and this is how I like my solo sound. Or are you sort of like reinventing it every time you start fresh?
I think it's important for us to all have the same rhythm tone as a bass line, because if you don't, it sounds really squirrely in a live mix. And so generally, the only difference between our tones is going to be the guitar and the player. So that way we try to minimize as much as we can control in the amp or the preamp. We try to keep that pretty much the same across the board.
That's cool. That's like there's like a standardization. I'm curious if the only differences are your hands, your pickups, your guitar. When you guys play each other's instruments, like does it feel very similar? How do you experience each other's instruments? You know.
Well, we used to do this thing in our live set where we'd trade guitars for a song, which we haven't done this in a long time.
We gotta bring that back.
Yeah, we used to do it for this song called "Prayer Position" off Periphery 3. I remember that was always our song in the set list where we trade guitars. And as you guys can see, I play PRS, Misha plays Jackson, Jake plays Ibanez, which aesthetically they're very different, right? It's very striking. It's like, wow, they each play 3 different brands. They must be wildly different guitars, meaning they have wildly different tastes in guitars and the way they feel, the way they play. But this happens to me all the time. Is I'll accidentally, like, I'll go for my guitar or something like that. Like if we're in the studio, I'll just pick up Misha's or I'll pick up Jake's on a whim, and it'll just hit me. And it's like, wow, this is like really comfortable, and I feel at home playing your guitars. And I realize for as different as our tastes are in some ways, I think at the core of it, we all like longer scale lengths. We all like flatter fretboards. We all like pickups. Like in this, I have Seymour Duncan Scarlet and Scourges. I like for my pickups to be passive, very responsive. So if you pick softly, the pickups will reflect that. But if you dig in and pick irresponsibly hard, like I like to pick, then you can feel that. It's not just a sonic thing. It's like it feels really satisfying for me to hear that difference and to feel it. So we all like that same quality as well. We like for our pickups to sort of embody that. So I think there are a lot more similarities in our guitars than you would think, right? Like off the bat.
Agreed completely.
So the reason we can switch them live if we ever want
Yeah.
to. It's got to be an easier song, but
One thing I will note is the biggest difference is just the player. Like Mark sounds, I could tell you who's playing just based off of the way it sounds. Mark has a very bright picking style. I don't really know why, but it's always very bright. And if there's any difference in how we dial our stuff, it's just sort of actually bring it closer, because using the exact same settings, it'll sound different, and it's not the guitar. Like if he picked up my guitar, it would still be brighter. And Jake has a much more balanced style. Jake doesn't need to. Jake can sort of use the more bassline stuff, and like I'm kind of wherever. I don't really know where I'm at, but like it's almost like the way Jake sounds is sort of our benchmark, and then we kind of bring it in from there so that it doesn't sound too different. Because sometimes I'll dial in a tone, I think it's perfect, and it'll be just too bright for Mark. And that's just how he picks, you know. Yeah. It's a really cool sound, actually, and I can't make that sound if I wanted to. Like, so it's just the tone is really in the hands, but it's kind of like people always ask, like, what is? It's like it's a bit of everything. I mean, the gear gets you to where you want to go. You'll get your sound out of anything, but there is gear that's better and that's more efficient to get you that sound. So that's what we gravitate towards.
You guys got any questions directly about playing or Wildfire?
We'll let you pick.
Yeah. Go ahead. You have the hat.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's a really good question for everybody at home. The question is, how do you dial in your in-ear mix when playing live, and like what is your your core sound on stage?
So it's a pretty dense rig. I think we're using the D Live currently.
Yeah.
And we all have pretty different mixes. I recently found out that my mix sucks because Spencer had my mix in his ears and he couldn't figure out why. And I was listening to my mix and I'm like, I thought it sounded pretty good, but that's how you, like, everybody needs very specific things. And what's nice about the system that we use is you can actually use your smartphone or a tablet, and you can kind of pick and choose what you want in the mix. So having you know, I tend to have like a more sort of like flatter mix. Like I have a little bit of everything, even though it can be detrimental to the headroom. Like I still like to kind of experience the song as if I'm listening to a track. Whereas I think Misha tends to have like more drums and more of him in his mix and less of the other stuff. And you know, I'm not quite sure what your mix sounds like, Mark, but
I like to have a little bit of that. I know what you're talking about, Jake, but I think the difference between maybe mine and yours is I've turned Misha up a lot in mine because I'm panned. So during a show, I'm panned hard right, my right, your guys' is left. And then Misha's panned on the other side. So what ends up happening is Misha and I get a lot of the rhythms that lock into each other. You know, these parts that only are really effective if they're super tight. So I always want to lock in with Misha live. And then click. I have a lot of click in my ears. Like when I've shown my inner mix to people, they're like, Jesus, how are you not deaf from the click? It sounds like a toy machine gun going off continuously in your ears. But again, that's just it's like playing soccer with a cup. You know, you always got some protection. I'll stop talking.
I mean, you wanna know what's so funny is like I realize I don't even notice the click until it's too soft.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my God, like I need more click, and then I'm like, really, it's that loud?
Yeah.
And then when the whole mix comes in, it's like it disappears. It just disappears. It's the weirdest thing. But like we all really rely on it. And one thing that Matt turned us on to, which sounded insane, was using a 16th note click. So like, you know, like you know, like that sounds like a lot, but then you realize like you have this resolution, and a lot of these parts that we're playing, you know, like, you know, where it's like that, you have a note to lock onto for everyone because you have a 16th note. And it almost sounds a bit like a shaker or something. Sometimes it like adds like this cool character to it, and it really helps you lock into the groove. It's what Matt plays to as well. So we found that like as crazy as that sounds, that's actually, you know, if any of you guys play with in-ears, like try that out. Try like a more detailed, and you know, don't have it all be one note. Like try to have like, you know, like high and low notes, but like have some representation of a 16th note rhythm on your click and see if it works for you, because it worked wonders for us.
And there's a big turning point in how tight we were live as a band. It was when we had wedges on stage. We would just play with floor wedges, no click, just everything coming at us through speakers. And once we had a click in our ears, I feel like we became a tighter band, you know, to the power of 10 or something like that.
Absolutely.
It was a huge turning point. And then you kind of realize like, wow, I wasn't playing very tight before this. And then now I really get to lock in and sort of get surgical with how I sound.
Nice. Is there sort of like is there a transcendence that happens where you're sort of hypnotized into the click, it sort of disappears, you're just performing, and it's just kind of guiding you there, like you're not consciously thinking about it anymore?
I'll take that one step further. I think, like I was talking about earlier, like, also, I don't know if this is really weird, me talking like this, but here, let me move this. I got it. We don't need to strike it. I'll just grab it. There we go. I don't know how to do this, apparently.
I'm going to pull real hard.
Yeah, there we go. I don't break anything. There we go. So, like, about a week into tour, you start to hit autopilot, and you are just on muscle memory, and that's when you get to start to enjoy it, because you're not thinking about what you're playing. I'll just like look at the band. I'll be in like kind of a flow state. I'll be looking at the guys, just kind of enjoying it. You could just trust your hands to do what they need to do. It's best not to think about anything. That's when I'll start to think about, like, you know, what I'm going to eat later or whatever. I'm still having a good time. I'm having the best time, because you could just take a step back and just do the thing and observe. And those are the moments where I can enjoy playing a show with these guys. The first week is always nerves, because I don't want to disappoint you guys in the crowd. But like, you know, once you know you've done it every day and like it's kind of built in, all that stuff disappears. The click disappears, the mix disappears, everything. It just becomes like kind of as long as everything's dialed in and there's no problems, like, and then you can finally enjoy it. And that right there is what I live for. Those are the shows where it's like, oh yeah, this is why I love doing this.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's like the best legal drug that ever existed.
Absolutely.
Just like,
Absolutely.
we nailed it. Everybody was singing along. It was so cool. Everything was great.
That's why we do this past 40 years old.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feels good.
Yeah.
Well, this question has come up on a lot of these things. It's not to take a negative turn, but how do you deal with when something goes wrong on stage? How do you sort of power through and not necessarily, bum everybody out if something's
I'm
going
working
wrong
on
for
it with
you?
my therapist as we speak. You know?
Have nightmares
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. No, I hate making mistakes live. Hate
Yeah,
it.
it depends on the thing. Like if it's a technical issue, I'll just look at the other guys. Be like, help, please, help. I need an adult, please. If it's me making a mistake on stage, I have a trick. Maybe this will work for any of you guys who play guitar out there. All right, so there have been a lot of.
No, don't tell them.
Really? No, but this is a safe space. There's only 200 of us in here. Just don't tell anybody on the live stream. Oh, damn, there's a live stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna know you're,
I'll
you're
just,
tricked now.
I feel like I've told people before. Anyways, the secret's gonna be out now. All right. So I've messed up solos before, or parts, like really like technical parts or whatever that I play sloppy. Or there have been some moments where I've like train wrecked a part or train wrecked a solo for whatever reason. I'll pull my cable out and act like it was the cable's fault.
This is 100% true. And he'll look at me like, stupid gear, always failing. It's like the most reliable gear on the planet. It
so-
never fails. It's always us.
And then so people won't go home thinking, God, that guy's a terrible guitar player. They'll be like, wow, man, I feel bad that his cable, malfunction on him. So, yeah, that's
Genius.
fine.
Absolute genius.
That's great. So, yeah, you always got to be in the prayer position, I guess, that nothing's on stage. But we should get into that, right? We should play that one next?
Yeah, how about we take one more question from these
Okay,
guys, because these guys have been very patient. We'll let you pick. Maybe from this side.
The little guy over here.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Oh, favorite song.
Favorite
This is a
song?
classic.
In general or of our own? You
I
guys
don't like our music.
I don't like any of our songs. Yeah. What's fun to play? You know what? Draculgras is really fun to play.
Yeah,
that's a good.
That's a satisfying song to play live.
I agree with that. That one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Even for you, Jake, because that one, the solos sound stressful.
I mean, it's stressful, but I feel like I've gotten it to a point where I'm like, good enough.
Yeah.
God, I'd love to be there.
Yeah,
This
me
life
too.
Getting
must
any
be
better than
awesome.
that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Quick questions from you. I want to interact with you guys. All right. Yeah, it's over there.
So I know you guys talk about tone a lot. You guys are really big figures. And like you guys mentioned earlier, you sometimes will take riffs that were written 10 plus years ago and bring them into newer pieces. How do you guys manage to keep your sound still sounding like modern, even when you're using riffs from
Nice.
Okay, it's a
Great-
very good
great
question. How do we take old riffs and make them sound modern, right? We don't care. I'm gonna say something. You could decide if it's controversial or not, but maybe you've picked up on it with my Meshuggah worship. I do not care about being original at all. That is the least interesting. It's the most boring thing in the world to me. Why? It's not fun. I just want to write music because it's fun to write music with my friends, right? So, and it's amazing that you guys like it. I still don't understand. I still think that something got messed up here, and it's like you guys are gonna figure out that what we do sucks. but the imposter syndrome is real. But like, it's also because we just don't care. We do whatever we want. We surround ourselves with a team and a group of people that understands and accepts that. Our manager Wayne, wherever he is very, very, very supportive of that. And that's a big thing, having people that understand that that's our process. We don't care about sounding modern, don't care about sounding original. We just want to have fun. And it's like what we said earlier, where it's like, if it works, even if you don't understand why it works, that's what matters. And if the people that you trust and the people that you write with are like, yeah, like I feel good about that too, then that's what matters.
Beautiful.
No, no problem.
Well said.
Yes, over there. The most difficult song. I
The
mean,
entire catalog. Oh, wow.
Wax Wings is probably up there because it's just I'm not used to it.
Yeah, most difficult song. There was a song on Periphery too called G,
Yeah,
J-I. That
that's
one was tough.
that one's very tough.
Yeah, that was a pain. It was an 8-string song that like it never did the dumb Meshuggah groove thing. Like it just was very notey. Misha wrote most of that one. It was just all over the place. Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, that one kind of sucked. But the weird thing is that like any song, no matter how difficult or whatever, if you play it on tour, like it'll eventually become autopilot. And there've been songs that like we go into rehearsal, I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna get there. I just don't know. And then it sort of magically comes together. Like you practice it as much as possible, but then by a week into tour, you're not even thinking about it. Like it's amazing. I'm like, wow, like even this song. So, you know, I'm hoping that'll happen with Wax Wings. And the reason that Wax Wings is difficult for me is it's a bunch of crazy moves that this guy does very easily that are difficult for me in a weird tuning on a tuning I'm not used to. But I'm pretty confident that, you know, after about a week of tour, I won't be thinking about that one either. You know, it's just you just kind of just brute force your way through it and then you figure it out.
There's a song called Insomnia on Periphery 1 that I thought was unplayable. I was like, oh, we're not going to pull this off live. Like we're not going to play this. It's never going to sound good. And then it took, yeah, like he was saying, a week into tour. And you realize that once the muscle memory is locked down, you can get away with a lot and you can make it sound really good if you just do it over and over and over again.
Yeah. But we get one more and then we'll play a song. Let's see. Back there.
Ooh.
Undercooked. So what does that mean? So I mean, that's very rare. That like the example of that, and this is where a lot of people like. I'm the one who feels this way about the Price is Wrong, but I know other people like it. And then I saw a live performance of it, and I was like, this song's cooler than I remember. So it's just a perspective thing. Like when we're putting out an album, we don't put on anything that we think sucks. It's more like with hindsight. And the answer is we just won't play it live. Like what we play live is very much dictated by how you guys respond. If we favor newer stuff or older stuff, it's really up to you guys. And a great example of this is like Periphery 1. I think people think that we don't like playing Periphery 1 stuff. We do, and we keep trying to like force it into the set, and then it just gets such a weird and weak crowd reaction compared to like the Periphery 3 and 4 and 5 and Juggernaut songs that it sort of stands out, and then we get feedback from the crew and they're like, yeah, maybe swap that out for something else, you know? And then we swap it out and then the energy's kind of the whole way through. So we're really basing it off of you guys. And even if I feel like a song isn't my favorite, I would play that live, and I'd be encouraged to play. We'd all be encouraged to play it live because we'd get to, you know, feed off the energy that you guys give us, you know? Hopefully that answers that. You over there, and then we're going to play a song. Very, very good question. I don't know if anyone or everyone heard that, but you're asking about luck and how that interacts with our career and where we're at. First of all, bad news about the imposter syndrome never goes away. Not yet. Maybe it'll take 25 years. I don't know. But like that's there forever. And you know, I don't really know how to solve that, unfortunately. Luck is a very, very big part. But the other half of that question, because think about it, all of you guys, I'm sure all of you guys are very talented in your own way, right? Like there's a lot of talent out there, right? So talent isn't what's necessarily going to set you apart. And it is sort of being right place at the right time. We were not cool until we were. It's kind of inexplicable. Like around Periphery 2, before that, nobody cared about us, and then all of a sudden people did. And that really drove home the point of like, it's not really us. It's just sort of people reacting to us, right? We're doing our same approach of just doing whatever we want to do. And now for some reason it's starting to work. The other half of that is being able to take that opportunity and not squander this. And you'll see this so many times where people will get a great opportunity, but they won't make the most of it. They might not have the right team around them to help them make the most of it or to advise them correctly. And then they squander that opportunity. And then the other part of this, which is answering sort of like the larger point of your question about luck, is does it still keep happening? Absolutely. All these lucky breaks that we've gotten have been very, very small steps. There's never been this one thing that's made all the difference. It's just all these little things that have slowly added up over time. And we're not the biggest band in the world. We're never going to be the biggest band in the world. But we have had this slow and steady growth. It's what I recommend to everybody. It means that whatever problem you'll face or challenge you'll face will just be just outside your wheelhouse. And it won't be this crazy thing you don't understand. So hopefully you have good and consistent luck. It's one of those things I just don't know how to manifest it or whatever. Just do your best. And my advice to everyone is just have fun. Do what you want to do. Don't be worried about being original. Don't be worried about anything. Just have fun with it, because that's a genuine thing that I think people can pick up on. I think you guys would agree with that, right? Yeah. All right, let's play a song.
Let's do it. Let's do Prayer Position. So on that tune, I mean, on very many of your tunes, you guys are doing this unison thing, but specifically on that that intro riff, when you're learning somebody else's riff within the band, and then you're both trying to nail it together, what is that process like?
Yeah, I mean, depending on which one of us writes the riff, there's always some kind of, some sort of sit down, like a knowledge transfer thing. Like here's how the riff goes. What made this song kind of challenging is that our bass player at the time wrote it, who's no longer in the band.
Nolly.
Nolly, yeah, he wrote this intro riff, and this was one of those things where, so we started with the intro riff. He showed it to us, or some form of it at the time, and then I think we spent most of the rest of the song trying to emulate this sound that Nolly was pulling off. Whether it was the intervals of the notes, the scale he was using for that intro riff, or just the energy, the vibe of the riff, trying to recapture it and yeah, this was the last song written for Periphery 3, right? Yeah.
Was it?
I think it was. Like we had.
I like how you look at me.
Jake
Yeah, I
remembers.
know.
Remember?
Jake remembers things, so I don't have to.
I don't remember. It had to be because Nolly wrote it, so he was busy doing other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a challenge. We are not versed at all in music theory, so we teach each other songs in person or with phone videos or Zoom sessions.
Well, that brings up a curious thing, because you're using all these like unique tunings, and then going into non 4/4 time signatures. So how did you guys develop that more astute sense of tuning and timing, if not through school? So
I think we all have pretty strong ears, which is what it is. So we can, when we say we don't know music theory, we're basically saying we don't know how to communicate in this universal language that everyone else can use to communicate. It's not saying that we don't hear the same things or whatever. So it does make things a bit more difficult, because if we could be like, oh, it's this scale and these notes, and you'd be like, oh, okay, cool. And we are also terrible because none of us do Guitar Pro. So a lot of bands will do that. They'll be like, oh, I'll just send you tabs of the riff. So we have to go very sort of old school and just show the other person. Mark has an exceptionally great ear. Actually, when he joined the band, or when he was auditioning to join the band, he learned so much by ear. And it was amazing, and it's a great skill to have. And in doing so, he'd like learn some of my riffs in ways where I'm like, that is so much better a way to play it. Where I was like, I'm gonna start playing it the way you like. I realized like how unnecessary that this motion is or whatever. So it's really cool. Like there's been like kind of interesting things like that. But yeah, it's because we have our understand, because we could trust our ears. That's what we use to write. And I'm sure there's some theoretical basis for that. We just don't have the language to explain that.
yeah. Do you guys have your own like twin language, like where you have your own set of vocabulary that's sort of like
Kind of,
specialized?
yeah. Like we don't like verbalize it too much. It's more of like, yeah, you just kind of like play this part right here like this, and you do one of these, and like it really is kind of like that. I think like the thing to keep in mind is that we all have very different playing styles, and so something that comes easily to Misha or Mark does not come easily to me. So I kind of have to like teach myself this new thing that kind of takes me out of my comfort zone, and I have to kind of relearn how to play the guitar in a sense, because they're doing things that they've done their whole life, and now I'm just now learning them. So I think a lot of it, why it's easier now is because of the internet and smartphones. So we're able to take videos of how one another are playing our riffs, and we send them to each other. I keep an archive of them. Like I have all of these folders of videos from like the album sessions of all the riffs, and it helps me keep track of all this stuff that doesn't come naturally to me. So we figured it out, but it's unique to us, I think.
Yeah. Do you guys find that people's personalities and guitar playing styles sort of match up?
Never thought about that.
I mean, I do play kind of slow.
Tapping all slow.
Tapping all slow.
I've never thought about that. Oh, you know who embodies this actually? Wes. It's Wes Howe.
Wes
He plays in a band called Alluvial. He played the solo on a song called
That's the
Miles.
first person I thought.
Right,
of.
right.
I'm like he sounds how his personality.
Dimebag Daryl as well. Like I've never met Dimebag Daryl, of course. Like, but just from videos and stuff I've seen, he always seemed to be like he played, if that makes sense. And I think Wes is cut from that same cloth. But yeah, I've never thought about that before, actually.
Is that like the music version of when like dogs look like their masters?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Oh, yeah. Of course he plays it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, then I guess like my guitar playing style is nervous and not good enough.
Nervous and not. What's Misha like? What's his personality? Nervous and not good.
Yeah. Good new album name. Periphery 6,
Nervous and not good.
All right.
We like it. Yeah, we like that.
We arrived at that. That's great. All right, so I want to switch gears real quick to gear. You guys are now not only just the players, you're sort of the developers of the gear. So how has that been sort of creatively for you as an expression in working to create these instruments that other people are now experiencing?
I mean, that's. I'll start. It's an incredible experience. It's like I said earlier. Like if you work with people that you like, especially, it's an especially great experience. It's everything that you think it's going to be, because when you think about it, I mean, like, all right, again, show of hands, who's a musician here, right? So everybody. So I'm assuming, like, you know, unless you play piano or drums maybe, but like you have several instruments. It's probably a favorite. There's probably a thing that you reach for, right? Like the opportunity to design that instrument that you know you'll reach for. Like that's a really special thing. And then to find out that other people dig that, that's really cool too, because these are very selfishly designed guitars. These are designed for our purposes and for what we want. And I remember, I'm sure you guys felt the same way. Like when I put these guitars, I was so nervous that people would hate it, because I was like, this is not really made with any consideration for what other people want. It's just, it needs to be like my perfect guitar. So it's kind of cool to see that people do dig the stuff that I wanted to make for myself.
Has there been like a surprising use or a surprising person or a genre or a style that's adopted your instrument that you're just like, wow, I never thought they'd be into that?
I've seen some country guys play my guitar. Yeah, like I maybe it's like the coil split sound that the guitar has, like when you put on a nice clean channel and you just split the coils. But yeah, I mean these guitars are made, like our gear is made to inspire us, and of course we play heavy metal, and that's the kind of music that makes us happy. And so that's our kind of bread and butter. These instruments, from the strings to the bridges to the pickups, from the knobs, it's like it is all part of this one cohesive intent to create the music that we play and that we write. So that's kind of the intent behind it. When it's used for something kind of weird and sort of off kilter, that's always surprising. Can you guys think of any examples of this?
I feel like I've seen a few people, like maybe in the country scene or pop scene
Yeah.
or whatever, and I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's also, I think, like sometimes frowned upon in certain genres to have like super strats or whatever. So
Right.
it's kind of cool to see that. Sometimes you see a pointier guitar or whatever in these more traditional contexts. But we, as you can hear from our music, we do a little bit of everything. So although we need our guitars to be good for heavy stuff, they have to be good for split coil stuff, they have to be good for clean stuff, they have to be good for leads, they have to be good for everything. So if you get past the looks, they're actually very, very versatile instruments. And regardless of the genre, someone will find some sort of setting that works genuinely well. It's not like a compromise setting. It's like, no, it's genuinely good at this sort of sound.
And to your point, like, so during the Periphery live set on the last tour, we went straight from the song Marigold directly, was it Marigold to Satellites or something like that? It was two 6-string songs back to back. One of them heavy, I think it was Marigold, and then directly to Satellites, which was the set closer. And it's two completely different types of songs. Satellites is like 90% on a clean channel, but you don't want to necessarily switch guitars all the time, so you want to be able to pull off both kinds of sounds on whatever instrument you're playing. So while heavy metal, heavy music is our sort of bread and butter, you want to be able to pull off other styles, as Misha was saying.
Nice. Anybody got questions about the guitars?
See you up
Right here.
Or there first, and then you.
Okay. Okay.
You want me to check out a guitar right now? No, that was not the best time to check out a guitar, but I could check it out a little bit later if that's all right. Yeah,
Nice.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I'm pretty caught up on your guys' guitars. So I didn't have a question about guitar. Last set of questions we were talking about, I guess it goes together, like leads and solo playing. And I was curious. I myself am more of a rhythm player. I try to play leads, but I'm slower than the more melodic. How did you guys develop your lead playing and your solo playing? I guess how does that work into the gear and stuff like that? Do you have a really flat fretboard? I don't know if these ones are compound radius or not or things like that.
I think we all do 20-inch radius.
So
Radii.
just to reiterate, the question
yeah,
is
sorry.
specific to leads. How did you sort of develop your skill set, and then also how does the shape of your fretboard and neck contribute to that?
So I got the 20-inch fretboard thing from Alan Holdsworth, and I had this Carvin Alan Holdsworth model, which Mark borrowed for
Sick
a little
guitar.
while.
Love that
Great,
guitar.
it was a great guitar, and it felt very unique because of that flat fretboard. It's kind of one of those things that until you experience it, you're like, I don't really get it. And so now all my signature models have that. I think like for playing, if you think about it, less of a radius, the more consistent it'll sort of feel across the strings. Like there'll be less difference in action and whatever across the neck. It's maybe a little worse for playing chords and whatever, but like for what we play, it just seems to suit our tastes better. As far as like the style, it's just trying to play like my influences, but I don't consider myself much of a lead player. I hate writing solos. I hate playing them even more. I may just stop because I'm just so. I just get so nervous every time I have to play a solo. It's like kind of ruining it for me. So, and these guys are so good at leads that I'll just leave it to them. Maybe I like playing rhythms.
What's kind of cool is that lately we've been all writing our solos together. Like Misha and Mark helped me with the last few solos that I did on Periphery 5, and I think they came out better because of that. So like what you're hearing is, you know, a collaboration. It's not just like I'm going to take a solo, so I'm going to write the whole thing. Like having these guys to help me kind of make it the best it can be is something that like I've really enjoyed working into the process.
Yeah, I'm not a natural lead player either. Like I kind of do it because it's a democratic thing in our band. Like I don't know, I didn't ever really want to play solos in this band until Juggernaut. Like I think one of you guys was just like, yeah, just do it. I think it was a bad thing. Yeah. Just do it. Just try it. And I begrudgingly did. But at the same time, also looking at what these guys did. Like I remember they wrote the dueling solos and Luck is a Constant. And I think that's one of the coolest moments for me. Like if I were to try and take a step back and think of Periphery's catalog impartially, I just love that moment. I love when they wrote that outro section. So that inspired me to sort of give it a shot. But one thing I really discovered that sort of let me be more comfortable writing lead parts and writing solos was instead of trying to like just hitting record and trying to solo for whatever 16 bars and seeing what comes out and seeing if it's a good solo, it's probably not going to be in my case. I'll do it like piece by piece. I'll just throw things into the session. I'll track, 4 bars, and I'll see if there's anything there that's cool, and I'll keep it. If it's not, I'll cut it, and I'll try something else. Or, I'll try something over a longer section, 16 bars, 32, whatever, and I'll go back and listen really deliberately and see what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and that'll sort of be my jumping off point. But what I'm trying to say is writing solos for me is not something that I do quickly. I really, really take my time. I'm sure if I were, a sort of natural shred, like I saw Pliny play last year, and he and his other, Jake Houston Lowe, his other guitar player, both of them are just stupid. But like spitting out things off the cuff that would probably take me 5 years to do, So when I see players like that live, I'm just like, it's kind of an easy realization for me because like, well, I'm never going to be that. But I don't have to be like that, and nor do you. That's its own thing. I'm going to try and be good at what I do, which is taking 5 years to write a guitar solo.
You know what bugs me about those guys is that they look like they're having a lot of fun too.
Yeah, they're
They all look
not.
stressed. Like Pliny, it's like the quietest section, and all you hear is Pliny, and it's like, God, I would hate to be that. And he's just chill. He's like, oh yeah, whatever, and just like crushes it. I'm like, that's a superpower right there. Right?
And he doesn't care if he messes up.
No, doesn't care.
He's like, yeah, I messed up.
Missed a note. Oh well. Yeah, but I have a little trick because I don't like writing solos, but I always have to do it, and it's really annoying. So I found a little trick that's kind of useful. It's kind of like with a set list. You want it to start strong and end strong. So figure out a good beginning, and then I'll skip all the way to the end and just try to figure out like how do I want this thing to end.
Yeah.
And then you'll loop it, improvise some bits. You'll start to have the puzzle pieces fit, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, I just have to link this to that. I have to link this to that.
Yeah.
Something I've learned with time as well is to like do it in a way where it's actually playable, because you'll have cool stuff. It's like, wait, but I got to get from here to like here because this part's like right next to each other, right? So you'll be like, okay, well maybe I can do it this way, so that brings me up there, but that's a small price to pay, and then you end up with a solo that actually flows pretty well, has a very strong start, has a very strong end, and hopefully like the middle bit all makes sense. And that's usually my approach. Again, I wish I was one of those guys. I'm sure there's a ton of you out there who just, oh, it's just easy. I just like improvise some stuff and it's amazing. I'm unfortunately not like that. It's a lot of work and I hate it. So, but if you have to do it, or if you want to know our approach, that's generally like how we will approach it. A second question. Does he deserve a second question? Yeah, go for it, man. Absolutely not. The simpler, the better. No, look. Let me put this. So it's a very good question. He's asking if it needs to be complicated. I think like the biggest problem with Periphery 1, and this maybe in hindsight makes a lot of sense, was it's a lot of like, oh, look at me, look what I can do on guitar, and that stuff sucks. Like no one cares. The way it should be, in my opinion, and this is always the beauty of like good music, is you'll be like, that's a really cool song, and then after the fact, you're like, whoa, that's actually pretty technical. I was just talking with Dez, actually, from GGD, Good Tiger. We were talking about, you guys know the Mars Volta, D-Loused in the Comatorium? That album has one of the greatest drum performances of all time by a drummer named John Theodore, and people don't talk about it enough. But the reason is because it's just like, you're just hearing like great songs, but then if you're like a drummer and you're paying attention to what he's doing, it's like some of the most insanely technical stuff. But that's your second takeaway, not the first. The first is just like, this song rules. That's the way it should be, in my opinion. That's the way it should be. Because then you have something that everyone can enjoy, and then the musicians take another look at it and they're like, wow, okay, to play that's actually a lot harder than I realized. So it's the same approach with the solos, the songs, or whatever. We don't care about being technical. To tell you the truth, it's probably harder to write a simpler thing that sort of catches your ear or gives you stank face or whatever. It's a lot easier to just throw a bunch of notes at, and they distract you from realizing that the riff kind of sucks. So like, we generally actually will try to keep it simpler. But sometimes there's some technical stuff that just sounds cool. Or it's like, you hear it and you're like, man, that'd be cool. And this run is appropriate there. And that's kind of hard to play. And that's where that ends up. But it's a secondary thing.
Nice. All right, so we've got on tap at least a couple more songs.
Yeah.
And we've got a zillion questions. You guys want to keep going into playing another tune? You want
Why
to
don't we play another tune real quick, and then we'll take our final batch of questions after that.
All right.
That sound good to you guys? Yeah?
What do we have coming up now?
We have The Way the News Goes.
All right. Here we go. Oh. No love for the piano part. Beautiful, beautiful, gentlemen. That was beautiful. So Jesper has a compliment and a question. Mark, your G rhythm solo is effing awesome, very fun to play. And for the way the news goes, was the song born from the intro riff?
Yeah, to answer your question very briefly, yeah. So the main riff and the way the news goes. It started out noodling. I think it was your question earlier. You asked where our riffs come from. And this was one idea that just, I think I was jet lagged. I was just really tired and sleep deprived, and I was just messing around with this chord. I use that chord all the time, but I was just like, what happens if I start just arpeggiating the chord? And then move down to this. That chord, this 9-7-9. Again, I don't know theory, so I'm going to sound like an idiot up here, but this 9-7-9, which is this, which I use all the time as a voicing of that chord with my thumb. So again, it's just kind of, that riff started out with 3 chords that I wanted to sort of outline. Again, this is not consciously, it's kind of just noodling around a chord that I liked. And the rest of the riff kind of took shape from there. But yeah, this was one of the first ideas we wrote for Periphery 3. I think the very first thing was Misha showing us the Marigold demo. And we knew that was kind of going to be the sound of Periphery 3. If you guys know the Juggernaut records, you know, this very ambitious double album that really drained the life out of our band. It was really difficult to record. If you're in a band, don't ever do a concept album. It was challenging in a lot of ways. You know, it's tough to create a narrative, write a story, and then have music underneath that and have it flow as a piece of music, but also as a story to match the lyrics. And it took us a very long time to get Juggernaut done. And by the time we had toured Juggernaut, we were just like, all right, let's just do a fun record. Let's have fun. Let's have there be no constraints. If we want to be riffy, if we want to put this really happy sounding idea like the way the news goes is, we want to put a song like Loon at the end of the record. Like there was a lot of, in retrospect, a lot of sort of landmarks on that record that to me signify us just having fun, you know. And I think the way the news goes was a nice sort of table setter for that experience, along with Marigold. So,
from my perspective, I get to see this happen a lot. Mark will just jam on these riffs. He'll just show up with these riffs, whether it's at like rehearsal or just at sound check or whatever. I'm like, what is that? He's like, oh, it's just jamming on this thing.
That's how I talk.
Yeah, that's how he talks. And that is how he talks when he's not on stage. But he's always like, yeah, it's just this thing I'm working on. Say I'm jamming, no big deal. And I'm like, that's like one of the coolest riffs I've ever heard. And I already can hear what I want to do with it. So I think you'd even taught me that riff, like how to play it on guitar, probably years before.
Oh. Something funny happened with that. All right. Can you hold this for 1 second? So, all right. So when I wrote the riff, the root note was this. I always heard this as the root note. That being the root note. So I always heard the bass note as. But when I showed it to Misha, he was like, we're starting with this. First. So it kind of like begs for this resolution. And then we had a compromise at the end, or like when we bring it back.
Yeah.
The root note will go back to the way that I wanted it to be.
But it's funny because it's like I'll hear it. I heard that riff in my head, and like I played it like that way, assuming it was always gonna be that. Yeah. I had a general like I didn't know what was gonna come next, but like I knew exactly how that was gonna sound when we recorded it, and that's pretty much how it sounds when it kicks in with the drums. And it came to life exactly how I thought it would, and then the rest came from there. But that's happened a few times now, and oftentimes he'll write these things that like start right before the bar. Like Mile Zero is a great example of that. The opening riff in Mile Zero, which again we always compromise because like that's not where the one is. I'm like, really? That's where I've been hearing the one like for the last 2 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
Because like and it's really interesting because like he's just playing the riff. I don't know where the one is, so I'm just assuming it's like just he's starting on the one. and then when I hear it, and so then we'll like kind of flip. It's like, oh, we'll do both. We'll get freebie, 2 riffs out of 1.
Yeah.
But you know, it's great. Like this is what he was just showing you, how he was just jamming there, is something you'll hear him doing. He was just doing it up there when he was warming up, and you'll just hear like really cool ideas come out. He's got a gift for it. I wish I could do that, but I can't. It takes me a very long time to come up with riffs. But you know, it just goes to show that everyone's got their own way of approaching it. There's no right or wrong way. You know.
Yep.
Yeah, that's you know, everybody has this opportunity to sort of tap into some creative stream and to like have music come out of them. So how does it work for you? It seems like, Mark, you're a noodler, but like, how do you guys sort of like put yourself in a place to like allow the creativity to flow?
I take showers.
Willpower. I just have to sit there and do it, and if I sit there long enough, something will come out that these guys can work with. That's about.
Jake's basically the meme of, "Are you winning yet, son?"
Well, this root note discussion leads us to Adam's question. Do you have any tips for making good compositional moves on a song? You know, themes, variations, making things work together but be slightly changed throughout.
That's a really abstract thing, and it's all instinct, I'd say. Who records here? Who uses a DAW and is cutting stuff around? Who has had this happen? You paste a part over the wrong part, but then it sounds weirdly cool. It's like kind of like shooting the pool ball. It ends up here. It's like, yeah, totally meant to do that. I'm a creative genius. Yeah, so many of our things are just like bad paste. It's like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's pretend like that was the intention all along. So you know, take those freebies when you can. You guys have had that happen, right? Yeah.
There's something else too that I've learned the past couple records that we've done is don't be afraid to embrace motifs and repetition in music. And here's a perfect example of this. Who here likes the band Opeth? Does everybody know Opeth? Okay, if you don't, just go walk to a
you're
store.
welcome.
Yeah, find Blackwater Park or Still Life.
Yeah.
And listen to a song just for Drapery Falls is a good example, right?
It's a great, they'll make you a fan.
Yeah, so there's not, and I find us kind of doing this same thing too, not consciously ripping it off, but every time you go back and you listen to those records and those songs, Drapery Falls in particular, it's the same riff for like 2.5 minutes, maybe 3, the same progression. And each time it's being played, there's minor differences, but it's nothing major. It's like a swell. You know, I think they're using like an EBO or like a trem. EBO, yeah. But it just gradually ramps up over the repetitions. The drums are not changing, the guitars are not really changing, the bass is not changing. There's no vocals, but like when I go back and I listen to music like that, it kind of reminds me that I don't constantly have to be grabbing one's attention, like the listener's attention, every 2 minutes. In fact, that can be quite fatiguing. Right? It can be like going to see a movie and there's just explosions every 2 minutes and there's like cool one-liners every minute or so. You want to sort of be lulled into a song depending on the context, but like at least in our context, whenever I hear music like that, it's just like, okay, I can relax. Like we can just kind of lean into a part and like instead of writing the most technical thing, maybe let's embrace this part that we had in the intro and bring it back a different way. You know, whether it's a drum part or whether it's a guitar motif that we have. But like, I like that lately, our past couple records, we've been pretty open to bringing back sections from different songs, other records and whatnot. So,
should we do a couple more questions from the audience here?
Yeah, let's get the final batch of questions from the audience here. Like all the way back there, I see you. Yeah. Like we said earlier, so you're asking like what to do when you write a part and you don't know what to do. Like sometimes it's best to just move away, work on something else. Like it's best not to force it because we've just found that when we force it, like nothing really good comes out. You know, if that works for you, like good. If you can force your way through, that's great. But for us, sometimes just getting some context, trying something completely different. Maybe not even writing music. Go play a video game or something. Even further back there, yes. Yes, and then you. That's correct. Yeah. So none of us really. I don't think any of us know.
We kind of know how to tune a guitar.
We know how to tune a guitar. I don't actually know the tuning that the next song is.
I don't either.
So like we all do stuff by ear, and that's why that system works. Everyone sort of works diligently enough so that by the time we show up to rehearsal, everyone can. I don't believe so. No idea. No idea.
It sounds like a Star Wars character.
Yeah, D flat 3.
I think the closest thing is when it comes to like things in or out of scale, Misha's able to detect that almost immediately.
Yeah.
And like sometimes like we'll be writing things, me or Mark, and Misha will hear a note that we're playing. He's like, that note doesn't go in there, and then that like helps. That informs like how we compose things.
That is very true.
I don't know why. Yeah, I like it's just a thing. It's like it just kind of jars me, and it's like the equivalent of like I don't know, like someone being like that guitar is orange. You're like, no, it's blue. Like, what are you talking about? So it's kind of the same thing. It's just an instinct. It's just I know, but we just we just kind of rely on that.
But your ear is like nothing gets past it in those like when we're talking about scale. I remember there was we were working on Wildfire. We were writing vocals for it. Like we were all in the same room writing the chorus for Wildfire, and Spencer was really, really adamant that we have this note this way, and you're like, that's not in scale. And because it's such a weird chord progression, you guys know the chorus in Wildfire, it's a strange chord progression. It doesn't sound like a typical chorus, but Spencer was very attached to a note, and you're like, that's not in scale. And Spencer was like, yeah, it is. And you're like, no. Like, I don't know how you do it either without knowing theory.
I don't know, but it just, but it's usually like moving the note up, like up or down, like a half step or whatever, and it'll fix it.
But Spencer eventually heard it. He was like, "Oh, I see what you're saying."
Yeah. That it's a handy thing. All the way back there. Oh man! How much time you got?
What day of the week is it?
Yeah. Oh God. Where all of Chaosphere? Can I just say all of Chaosphere? God, I love Chaosphere. Born in Dissonance is like one of the greatest Meshuggah songs ever. Does anyone know I?
Yeah.
Listen to I.
That's not
Has
fair.
anyone not heard I by Meshuggah? Raise your hand. I'm so jealous. So jealous.
We'll listen to that like now.
Yeah, you could be listening to that instead of listening to us.
Can we just play it from the speakers?
Yeah, can we just play that instead of the last song?
Check this shit out.
You've been holding your hand up for a little bit there. It's a very good question. So you're asking about the syncopated parts and how do I approach them, right? And a lot of people ask about that, like, are you counting? Because I've seen people break down what's happening. They're like, oh, it's like this pattern. And it's like, God, if I had to think of it that way, I would never be able to play a live show. Like, you have to feel it. And, this kind of goes with, like, the whole shower thing. It's like I won't always have, like, the exact idea, but there's a feel I'm chasing. And there's something where it's just, it's hard to explain, but you're just trusting your instinct. It's like, where do these rhythms need to be? So I actually won't start with drums. I'll usually start with the guitar riff, but I'll always have the drums in my head. I'll always have, that's such an important part, and I'll know what the feel will be and what the accents are. I might, even in the shower, be drumming on my thigh or whatever, just trying to feel it out. And there's usually just a vibe that I'm going for, and then that's what I'm chasing. So the final product may be a little bit different, but it'll be closer to the vibe that I was looking for, if that makes sense. Yeah. Over there. Again, we don't try to sound unique or original. I think what you're hearing is just us doing our thing and kind of the melting pot of all of our ideas. We're not like there's people out there that will just say that we sound like a Meshuggah cover band, and they are correct. So, so to some people, what we're doing is very unoriginal, which is why it's not worth pursuing, in my opinion, because everyone will have a different opinion. What we do is fun, and what you're hearing is just the result of us not caring, if that makes sense. Yes, over there. God, no. I hate doing solo albums. It's so much fun writing. Do you like doing solo albums?
Yeah, but I do like a much different style. That's fun.
I play better with others. I don't know.
It's the best thing in the world. That's why I don't do solo albums.
We do Haunted Shores. We do 4 Seconds Ago. I
Yeah.
prefer collaborating. I don't know.
I wouldn't.
If I have to, I guess.
I wouldn't do metal as a solo album. I think that's too hard.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can I follow that up with just when you guys collab maybe outside of Periphery, how does that bring a freshness back into Periphery?
You get to scratch these itches, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's always it's fun to collaborate with other people, and you learn a lot. You know, like from working with these guys, we have a very very tight setup, as you guys can hear, and not to say it's predictable because it's still fun, but like we have a dynamic that's very well established. So when you get to explore different things, like even just collaborating on the electronic stuff with Jake or doing Haunted Shores with Mark, we get to approach it from a completely different angle. And sometimes you're doing it as is the case with both of those, where there's no live responsibility.
Yeah.
And everything we do with Periphery, there's even though we're not thinking about live, it's like, well, we're gonna have to do this live probably. You know, that's always in the back of your head. And when you don't have that, you have this like level of freedom that's really, really cool. You could go for stuff like, 300 BPM or whatever.
And there, like I was saying earlier, there's a whole lot of hoops that we have to jump through for a Periphery riff or idea or a song to make it to the record. There's 5 people in this band. Every single one of them is opinionated. Every single one of us are a producer in our own weird way. With Haunted Shores, with just Misha and I, it's just a free for all. It's the Wild West in the studio. It's like if this riff is fun and it kind of makes us laugh and it's silly and it's heavy and brutal, sure, let's put it on the record. Let's put on the song. And that's a fun, liberating way to write, as Misha was saying. Like it's a very different flavor than how it's done in Periphery. And I think embracing that makes you go back to Periphery and kind of appreciate the structure of it all. If it was too much of one thing, I think you would maybe grow a little bit tired of it. But it's nice to mix up styles, I guess, in that way.
Yes, over there. We'll get a couple.
Yeah,
more.
we'll do the lightning round.
So many nice people.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful question. So you're asking about when we're writing a song, how the song translates live, and if it translates better or worse than what we expected, and if we're thinking about that. I'll tell you that one of the biggest changes from Periphery 1 and every album after that is that we had live touring experience. How many people here have toured? Okay, how many of you have played a show? How many of you have played songs that you wrote in the studio? Right? So we got a few. Like so maybe you guys can experience. Maybe you can sort of raise your hand if like it translated better than you expected. Okay, that's good. So worse than expected. Okay, we got a few there. Okay, so that's an important point. There's a few more there. That's normal. that comes with time. Probably the songs that translate the worst live are our older songs, and with time, it's really getting feedback from you guys, like seeing what stuff works in a live context. We're feeding off your energy. There's a general like almost palpable vibe and energy that's going on, and you sort of learn what works, you learn what doesn't work, and there's so many times where it's like, oh, this is gonna be great, and it just falls flat. There's entire songs, like I think Priestess is a great song, but we've tried to play it live and we never, it just doesn't, it doesn't translate. I don't know why.
A Black Minute, remember? We opened a tour.
I
with
want
Black
that song to work so well, and it never works.
Yeah.
Same thing with Muramasa.
Oh yeah.
Like I always thought, like this would be great, but it doesn't. And then on the other hand, Marigold is such a whatever song to me. It was just like almost like a guitar exercise of a song. It's like, oh, neoclassical, ugh. And like people love it. I don't know why. It always does well. The breakdown, which isn't even a breakdown, people go nuts for it. And I don't understand it. I'm like, why? How? What did we do there? And it works every time. And I'm just like, that's not even a breakdown. What are you doing?
Stop moshing.
Stop it. Stop it. Mosh at this part. So there's stuff I still, to this day, I don't understand. But then there's also other things like Reptile. When we wrote Reptile, we're like, oh, this is gonna be a good one.
Yep.
And then that's one of my favorite songs to play live. Dracul Gras is another one. So with time, you get the experience. And are we experts? Absolutely not. I still don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. So it's an ongoing experiment. Yes. How do you convey your emotions in your songwriting, Raki?
I don't have emotion. No. I really don't think that there's any effort involved in it. Really, like I think if you're going out of your way, at least in metal, like I can't speak to other types of music because I don't really play those kinds of music, but it just sounds lazy, but it just kind of comes out. You know, like your emotion, like everything comes out. Your emotions, how you're feeling inside, your health, like all of that is reflected in your music, in your art, you know, whatever you do, whether you're a painter, musician, filmmaker, or whatever. I mean, there have been times where I go through long slumps of not writing music, where I don't want to look at a guitar. I was telling Jake this earlier today, that like, it really worries me, like when I don't want to look at a guitar for a month. And I don't know why that is. And it feels like the sky is falling every time I find myself in that place. I don't know if it's like a depression thing or if it's like I need a break from the guitar. But once I feel healthy again, and my relationship with the guitar feels like it's firing on all cylinders, the music reflects that. You know, the music says that I'm feeling good, if that makes sense. But I'm not really spending any effort to do that. And one secondary lesson that I've learned in all of it is if, for whatever reason, I feel like taking a break from music or the guitar, which, you know, sucks, but I learned to lean into that feeling. I try not to guilt trip myself over it, you know? Like if you feel like you're in a slump with whatever you're doing, again, any craft, and you're like, why have I hit this wall? Why am I not getting better? Why do I suck? All these things that I tell myself, and I'm sure each one of us in this band, we battle with our own sort of inner voices telling us that we're not good enough or telling us that we suck. We all deal with it. But it's important to lean into the fact that it's okay to take a break from your instrument. You don't constantly have to be working at your craft because then you end up in this burnout mode where it's counterproductive to everything you're trying to accomplish. But first and foremost, never listen to that voice that tells you that you suck. Because while we all have it, I guarantee you every single one of you guys in here has it too. The voice inside that tells you you're not good enough. Just quiet it down. Don't listen to it because it's the most human thing ever to have that voice. So,
Jake.
Why me? I think these guys think I'm in touch with my emotions or something. It's interesting. I haven't really figured out what drives me to play the guitar, and it's an abstract feeling because like when I play guitar, I'm trying to accomplish something that I can bring to the guys to kind of develop into something, and that's kind of my main thought. I'm not really thinking about like how it makes me feel outside of like, oh, this is a sick riff. I think where my emotion is sort of unintentionally implanted in my music is with the solo stuff that I do because it's something that feels a little bit more relatable to me. Like I love metal and I grew up on it, but I think I found that electronic music is more like my voice, so to speak. So even though like I've only really started experimenting with lyrics and vocals in my music recently, all of the songs were like kind of written with a feeling or something I was going through in mind while I was writing. Another thing I've been trying to do, and I got this idea from my girlfriend because she listens to a lot of music that I've never really gotten into, and I'm starting to listen to it from her perspective, which is she listens to the lyrics, and she'll kind of like, she'll say a line to me, and she'll be like, isn't that such a great line? I'm like, I don't get it, and then I think about it, and I'm like, oh, I think I get why you're enjoying this, and so like I've started to kind of look at lyrics as like something that is, you know, even though it's not an instrument, it kind of is. You're kind of like playing with your emotions and kind of putting them out there, and that's something that I want to focus on more. Is just kind of understanding lyrics as an instrument. So it's kind of like a roundabout way of saying that guitar doesn't necessarily make me explore my emotions. I'm finding other things do.
Very good answer. We've got time for like a couple quick ones. Then we're gonna play a song and then get out of your hair. So let's see. Why don't you choose? I don't want to be the bad guy.
Okay, let's go. You two right here, back to back.
All right, there we go.
Ooh.
So that's a really good question. You're asking about the lyrics and how it's sort of integrated into the writing process. Because Spencer writes all the lyrics, and I mean, none of us really are lyric writers, and he's very good at it. Like, we have no skill there. It kind of comes to him, and what we've recognized is that he's had a bit of a tough job because we will write these like instrumental songs and then just be like, all right, Spencer, figure it out, see ya, you know, and it's a lot of work, and we're throwing like weird syncopation, time changes, weird chord progressions, and like he's just got to go there and figure it out. It's amazing that he's done what he's done, to be honest, and he's an amazing producer in his own right. Like he can write an entire album. I mean, he does. He writes entire albums by himself, so he is kind of the perfect guy to do that. But we're actually starting to lean a little bit more into like, hey, well, what if we started with the lyrics first or started with vocal lines first, just because like after all these years, that's something we haven't tried yet, and it's like, well, let's see what happens. So good little tip there is just kind of just change up your process, see what comes out. Sorry if you were going to say something.
No, that was pretty much it.
And now you.
Oh boy.
Remote band.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're asking about living in different areas. We all started in Washington D.C., but we have all since moved, and we're all over the country. And it does make it's definitely a challenge. If you want to know why Periphery 5 took so long, pandemic really didn't help with traveling, and it was very hard to meet up. And we found that if all of us aren't there, it's very hard. Like we said earlier, like everyone has to be happy with it, and if one person isn't there, well, guess who starts to have like problems or opinions that don't match up with everyone else's, and they didn't have their input when they could have had it, and it just makes it very difficult. So I think that is a challenge that has to be navigated. You'll have to find your dynamic that works for you. For us, we found that we have to be together. So the lesson we're taking from that is don't really write or commit to stuff unless we are all together. That's what works for us. It's a pain, and it's something that we have to work around. I really do wish that these guys live closer to me. So if you guys can convince them to do that, that'd be wonderful.
We've embraced this retreat style approach to writing. You know, we'll get together, we'll live together, we'll share an apartment for 3 weeks. Like that's how we started Periphery 4. It's how we started Periphery 5. Just like we'll book a place to stay, you know, for 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks just to get things rolling. And then depending on how things go, and yeah, like Misha said, COVID was really hard for us because we couldn't even meet up for that long, you know, and we'd have to fly home and then we couldn't get on a plane right away. But yeah, to answer your question just concisely, a lot of flying, a lot of Zooming, a lot of phone calls, a lot of conference calls. We have a call every Thursday in the band just to catch up on everything, like everything, from our record label to, you know, what we're working on side project wise, to business stuff, to merch, you know, whatever. It's all represented, but there's a lot of communication, despite the fact that we all live so far from each other. We don't ever feel too far from home base. You know, there's always some kind of nexus keeping it all together. You know, we're always in touch.
Everything's better.
That was
It was
sound this.
Yeah.
The one thing to keep in mind is like starting out remotely. I don't think that would work for us.
That's true.
Like, the only reason we have the luxury to be in different states is because the Periphery is a bit of its own machine that kind of runs independently of where we all are, and it affords us the ability to kind of get together when we need to get together and live in the areas we want to live in. So, you know, if you're starting out as a remote project, I think that is going to be an enormous challenge. So when I first joined Periphery, I was living in New York. I threw all my stuff in a storage unit and I slept on Misha's couch because I knew it had to be done to be in the band that I wanted to be in. So I guess, if you have committed members who are willing to kind of make that, that ultimate commitment, then you can work your band to a point where you do have the luxury to be in different states.
All right, so we have gone way over. We love you guys. You're the best. So everybody in here, stick around. We have signature Mark, Misha, Jake guitars right here for everybody to play. We're going to do autographs. Everybody on the live stream, thank you so much for tuning in. Mark, Misha, and Jake, thank you all so much for your time, for your knowledge, for your experience. This has been really great. So now we're going to have swings. Thank you, guys.